Right, so what we've done, we've cut the steel wire armoured cable to about 1 metre long, right, is using a scrap bit. So we've got the gland, we've tightened it up onto the box, it needs to be as tight as possible, so you tighten that up with a 22mm spanner, so really tight. Then what you've done, you've crimped a crimp lug onto a bit of earth wire. That needs to fasten through the box, through the M4 bolt, with a washer each side of the lug, so one on the inside of the box, one on the outside. And then you're going to tighten that up with the box spanner. That needs to be as tight as possible. Okay, so if you can rotate that, which I can, you're going to get a flat screwdriver. You're going to hold that tight until you nip that up. And then at the other end of your cable, you're going to measure that to the back of the box. So what I like to try to do is strip that and fold it over, which is a little bit awkward. So if you struggle with that, it's easier to just cut it to length. Strip both ends of the cable where your wire strippers are being set. And then you're going to terminate both cables into the back of the box, and then you'll have a tail ready to go through the socket to earth it. Okay? So, to cut the armoured cable, so you're going to measure the cable, you're going to hold it in place, you're going to go roughly 50mm past, so you don't have to measure that, as long as you can judge by now what 50mm in. And then where the knurl is on the gland is where you're going to put a pen mark on the armoured cable. So then what I do is I'll put a little bit of insulating tape to give you a nice round cut. Now there's two ways you can strip the armoured cable. When I was on the tools, you would use a junior hacksaw. And what you do, you'd cut round, cut round, cut round, and halfway through the arm run. Okay? We, the college, have now bought a much better tool to do that. So the tool we've got is a armoured cable stripper. I'm just going to get one out of the cupboard. So this does the same job as a hacksaw. It's got like a little hacksaw blade in there. So what you do is you put that over the armoured cable. So you nip that up until it's tightish, and then you rotate.
How many times?
I'm going to tell you. Right, so you rotate. Can you hear that biting onto the armoured cable? Right, so you keep on tightening the nut until you can feel it biting. So you can feel it like cutting the armour in rather than the PVC. Then quarter of a turn. Rotate. Another quarter. Rotate. Another quarter. So you're going to do that 7 times, right? Right, did 7 last week, it wasn't my busy enough, so I'm just going to go one more, 8. Okay, so then release that tool, and what it's done, it's cut the outer sheath, and it's also, hopefully, cut through the arm run. So then carefully, with a knife, always cutting away from yourself and cutting away from others, so if you could just spread back a little bit. Okay, so I could put this in the vise, which you can, right? But in the middle of a workshop or a wall, you wouldn't be able to put a vise up on the wall, right? So what we can do is we'll turn that around so you can see the vise. Just gently nip the arm in the vise, and then cut the outer sheath off. Then close the knife. And then the strands. Snap them off. So you do little bunches of 4 or 5 cables. So if you've cut deep enough, they should snap off easy. If you haven't cut deep enough, you'll be like several other students where you're going to end up splaying the armouring and it's going to be harder to fit the gland. So you need to make sure you do those 7 rotations. It was Hal that was asking the question just for you lot. Hal has already done this. I'm videoing myself so I can portray this to another group for online learning.
All right.
Okay, so now we've got the armouring stripped off. Going back to the task. What we're going to do is then push the armouring, the inner sheath, through the gland, and we're going to get a pen. When this is fitted, this part of the cable is going to actually go up onto the nil. So what we're marking there is effectively 10 mil higher. We're going to mark that, and then we're going to use the flex stripping tool. Remember, I used the green bit of the flex stripping tool. Pop that over and make sure that the blade's in line with the pen mark that you've put on. Rotate that about 3 times. Just pause the video there. Can you stop rattling? Because every time you're rattling, that's these learners are listening to you rattling. That was Eri, he's naughty boy as well. Right, so then you should be able to pull that outer sheath off. If you can't, what you can do, you can use the flex stripping tool again and take only half of the sheath off. Another half. Then, about 40 millimeters down, you can use either a junior hacksaw to just carefully score around the outer sheath, or a knife. Now again, if you want to be safe, and because you're freehand and you've got a loose bit of cable, you can put that into the vise. So then you should just rotate this part of the knife's the sharp bit, right, and not that bit. Right, obviously if you're pointing it that way, that's sharp. This is the bit that you're going to use to cut. So about 40 millimeters down. That's so that the braiding can expose easily. Right, so 40 millimeters down, what we're doing, we're cutting all the way around. Remember, never cut towards yourself or anybody else. And then just run the knife down again to cut that outer sheath off. Now if you've rotated all the way around, close the knife, remember, when you're not using it. That should snap off nicely. Then you're ready to fasten that to the board. However, if you gland that off through the board, you're going to struggle with this end because they'll be working on the board. So what you're going to do, about 100 millimeters up, you're just going to do the same thing. So you just gently nip the armouring in the vise so you didn't squash it, or don't squash it. And then at 100 mil up, what you can do, I'm just going to use the armour stripping tool this time rather than use the knife. You should only have to rotate this, so 100 mil, 10 centimeters. So as soon as you feel that biting on the braid, so that's just starting to bite there, I would turn that quarter of a turn. So if it was the other end, if I wanted to cut that armouring off, how many times would I do that? 7. So quarter of a turn, rotate, quarter of a turn, rotate, and then the armouring should snap off easily. Now I can feel that I'm actually just scraping onto the braid there. I know I've cut through the outer sheath, so I can remove the tool. Cut the outer sheath back off. How many millimeters long does that need to be? And this time, what you're going to do is you're going to bend the armouring in groups up over, and you're going to tape it onto the cable. You're not going to actually cut this off. In the real world, you would be cutting this off and you'd be fitting a gland on the other end